Hey everyone, it's good to see you again. We're going to take a look at some social theories today. Now, the reason why I put this in this class is because when I started doing research in a master's program about social theories, why people choose the technology they choose, I began to say to myself, hey, information that would have been nice to know when I started my career. And also information that because I always had that quandary in my head of why do people do this, I was watching the tech field and was able to say, this is going to be bigger. Here's just a small example. A long time ago, Microsoft was not what they are when it came to LAN networking, right? They pretty much own LAN networking. Linux is an option, but if you just want to make your life easier and more powerful, just use Microsoft stuff and it'll be easier and more powerful. Not to mention all the different programs and applications that are out there that are built on top of Microsoft stuff to make it even easier. So back in the day, I was using a product called Novell NetWare, and that was by far the hugest product out there for LAN networking. And I could see like Microsoft and how they worked even then. They bring out a product, they get it as quick as they can to the market. It's usually not very good. And then over the next 3 or 4 years, especially at this time, it dominates the market because it becomes very good. And so when Microsoft started to become a competitor, their LAN products doing stuff with your company internally was just garbage. It wasn't really there. But it hit a certain point where I could see, wow, this isn't dying, right? Microsoft's not going away. We're probably going to need to switch to Microsoft. And that was one of the best decisions that we made, and we made it at the right time. And of course, I was a hero for having done that at that time. But I wouldn't have done it had I not been watching what was happening in the field. Well, that really comes down to social theories. Now, I want to give you an example here. Technology is a disruptor. What that means is that any field technology really comes into, it disrupts it. So a quick example would be the music field, right? So it finally gets to the point on a computer where you can take a CD that's digital, take the music off of that CD and put it into a different file format, and you can just play hundreds of thousands of songs on your computer. You'd only need that CD when you're in the car, basically. And then the iPod comes out, and it's not the first one to come out. There was other media players. The media player comes out, and now you can play those wherever you go in not a sequential form, but just play whatever genre you want or anything from any kind of group. You no longer had to go buy a CD for 12 bucks or 20 bucks for the 2 songs you wanted. That's how the music industry worked prior. Instead, you could get them for free off the internet. Now, the reason I say get them for free off the internet is because nobody was selling them off the internet. It was up to you. So somebody would get a CD and they would rip, right? They'd rip all the music off of it, put it into a file format, and then share it. Music industry's going nuts. They're losing tons of money. Can you imagine? I mean, almost overnight, they're just bleeding money. They're not making what they used to make, and they want that stopped. Well, Steve Jobs was a big person in this area, I guess due to his love of music or whatever. But when he saw the first media players, he was like, hey, we should do that. This is one of those areas where computing technology, the internet, all of that is totally changing how music is listened to, how it's experienced. And go back to the 80s, that's kind of what he did then too, right? He wasn't the only one that understood it by any means, but he did understand, hey, computing is not just for big business anymore, it's for the person, right? So being able to see that kind of shift is really, really important for him. It made him millions, right? But for us in our careers, we can see what's coming down the road and take it seriously if we know how to evaluate whether or not is it a fad or a shift. So are we shifting to something else, or is this just a fad and it's going to go away soon? So back to the music example here with the iPod. He went in and, by now, right, iPods are getting pretty big. And he went into the music labels and said, hey, look, you're going to lose everything unless you really reduce your prices. In other words, you're going to have to start selling these by the song. And like the first price, right, was $1.07 or something like that. You can buy it for $1.07. And that significantly shifted people away from just stealing the music, right? So basically what you had going on in society is people saying, I'm paying $12 for 2 songs I like. You know what? I'd rather do something illegal and just get the 2 songs I like. There's no other option, right? And since it's so valuable to have a media player and just play whatever you want, when you want it, repeat it all the time, you know what they do, right? Your phone does that now. Then why would I have CDs? Why would I go buy a CD to be legal just for 2 songs? Right. So he understood all those situations and went to the music labels and got them to sign up with iTunes. We don't talk about it much because really in society, Apple is not one of those companies that people like unless they're an investor in it. But they make more off of iTunes than Amazon does on everything they do. That's how big iTunes is. The reason it's huge, they've adapted as these things come along. And so being able to convince them, hey, let's just sell your songs. Otherwise, you're losing all your money, right? People are not going to buy CDs anymore, and you're going to lose all your money. And he was able to get them to sign up. And then, of course, lots of other things happened within the music industry. People started actually doing it from their home with an iPad, putting all the mixing software and everything, and just, I made a song and I'm going to put it on iTunes, right? And now they're not the only ones doing that, right? There's tons of others that provide that kind of music. So technology as a disruptor means that when a certain technology comes into a specific area, it just rearranges everything and it disrupts that sector. If you're an investor and you know that disruption's coming, then right, you can make money off of that. And the reason I mention that is because often if you do searches and things, you see technology as a disruptor, they're actually talking about investing. For you in your job, as you move on and start to become part of a team that's making decisions on what should we do here or what should we do there, or hopefully someday being in charge of a large tech organization, then you're going to be able to have very, very great successes in your life by looking at what's happening and going, is that going to disrupt things? Is that going to be bigger than I think it is? Well, beyond just sitting around and guessing, right, there's not much of a way to know if it's a fad or a shift to things, right? We moved to mobile, right? Or take, what Netflix is now, right? Netflix was just some company that sent DVDs off in the mail to you, and they did it cheap. And then what happened was Blockbuster came in and they actually, well, they were already there, right? They came in and said, you know what? We're going to start doing the same thing. And that was very wise of Blockbuster to do. The thing that wasn't wise, as you know, Blockbuster's the butt of so many jokes, right? We've seen that in so many movies. Oh, there's a Blockbuster. It must be 1990. It's getting old. But what they didn't do was really understand that everything was going to shift to streaming. Now, this is an area that I wasn't watching. I was kind of involved in it because, I'm one of those early cord cutters. But I didn't really think it would be as huge as it is. And that's mainly because I'm not watching it. I don't really care. I'm not really concerned what that industry's doing. Had I watched it more, I probably could have figured it out. But At that time, the internet's slow. It's slow. So you're watching a video about that big and it's fuzzy on your screen. Nobody wants to watch a movie that way. That's ridiculous. Nobody wants to do that. But the understanding that the internet's going to get faster and faster and faster. You're going to have bigger pipes to send that data through. Someday you'll be able to watch an HD, at this time we didn't have HD movie, and stream it from some website, right? Blockbuster didn't see that. Blockbuster wasn't concerned with it. Blockbuster was afraid of losing the money they were already making. I'm renting movies for this price. And so if I do something else, I'll have to take a pay cut, right? That's what the music industry had to do. They had to say, I'm making $20 off of 2 songs that people want. They have to buy the whole thing. Now they're just going to buy the 2 songs. I just lost a lot of money, 90% of what I was going to make. Of course, they didn't realize other things would make up for those loss and profits. So Blockbuster, right, is no more. It's closed its doors. It started too late in the process of becoming bigger. They never, by the time they actually got into the business of go online, pick a movie, it'll be sent to you, then you can drop it off at the Blockbuster store, send it back, and get another movie from the Blockbuster store. By the time they were doing that, which was a really good model, Netflix was starting to stream things, right? Too late, and they were gone. That's the big thing that happens in technology, that it happens rapidly. It's not like the auto industry, where in the auto industry, it was like, oh, here's a smaller car that's more fuel efficient. And that happened over years and years and years, which gives Ford the opportunity to look and go, oh, dang, Toyota's making these smaller cars that are more fuel efficient. And then it takes them 5-6 years in order to catch up with that. But that's okay, right? Because they move that slow. In technology, you don't have 5 or 6 years. Blockbuster was gone very quickly. When that shift happens, it just flips and it's all done, right? Another example, move to mobile, right? BlackBerry. Some of you now don't even know what a BlackBerry is. You've heard it, but aren't concerned with it, right? BlackBerry was basically a smartphone that had a little keyboard, and its big reason or big push in use was that it was encrypted. Those messages were encrypted. So you ran on a BlackBerry server, and your information would go back to your institution, and it's all encrypted and not just traveling around the globe where everybody can read it. So business-wise, BlackBerry became very huge, very quickly, and everything was great. And then the iPhone came along, right? And I actually will include a link to this because I've got this information on my site, but so many tech people, as a matter of fact, let me pull this up. Things about the iPhone, things about that were said about the iPhone when it first started. So this is on my website. I will just show you up here. If you go to eac.byte-ideas.com, you'll be able to find this link. And I just saved some of them. I've actually put them on my own page just because I want them there as an example of this is what happened. The iPhone comes out and it's huge. Now, this is a huge phone. There are bigger phones, right? There are a lot bigger phones out there. But the first one was really only about that tall, about that wide. I didn't have one. I've been using smartphones for years, so it wasn't a big deal for me. But when it came out, people said, those things are massive. They're too big. Nobody would ever want something that big. And so let's take a look at this. This is Steve Ballmer, who was really in charge of Microsoft at the time. He says, there is no chance the iPhone is going to get any significant market share. Right, that's what he said, no chance. It's a $500 subsidized item. They may make a lot of money, but you actually take a look at it, 1.3 billion phones that get sold. I'd prefer to have software in 60 to 70 or 80% of them than I would have in 2 to 3% that Apple might get. iPhone is nothing more than a luxury bauble. These are people that know, right? Right. This guy's been in tech forever. Most of these that are reporting have been in tech forever, right? These are the people that are supposed to know. If it's smart, Apple will call the iPhone a reference design and pass it to some suckers to build with somebody else's marketing budget. Then they can wash their hands of the marketplace failures. Otherwise, I'd advise people to cover their eyes, as you're not going to like what you'll see, right? There was all sorts of these. There's no stylus. But who cares if there's no stylus, right? First, it's awkward to handle. At 4.5 by 2 inches, it's awkward, right? Again, these are people that know. And of course, everybody followed what they did, right? What happened? What was going on? Well, there was a shift to mobile. In other words, computing was yet again being shrunken down, and we no longer need a notebook to do that on. We can do it on our phone. Now, that doesn't mean you don't want a notebook to do that on because of the bigger keyboard and the bigger screen. But being able to use that communication device wherever you go, it significantly changed the way business worked, right? Before you left the office, you got back the next day, you checked your emails then, you checked your voicemail then. That's the way it works. Now, not the way it works, right? I have an inbox right here. I have an app that's on my phone that's called Teacher. I hit it. I actually get a pop-up on my screen that says a student so-and-so has messaged you. I look at it. I answer the message right then. Now, yeah, if it's 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, probably not, but it's a lot quicker turnaround, right? I'm not going into the office and then checking each day and say, oh, I can just do it right then. I can be wherever I am and do that. I can have a student say, what's my grade? And I can go in and look at their grade and say, this is your grade and this is where it's found, while I'm on vacation or while my wife's driving down the road and I'm sitting in the seat next to her, right? Computing changed. There was a massive shift to mobile. And what people wanted was more computing power in their mobile device. They wanted the computer in there. Now, nobody really said that. Nobody said, you know what I really want is a computer in my mobile device. They didn't say that. They couldn't envision the difference. And so when the iPhone came out and it's got this touch screen, which we could talk about all the technology behind that, the fact that batteries had to improve, screens had to improve, all that technology, but the right time actually hit and they produced that. And then, everybody said, this is a piece of junk for about 2 years. It's too overpriced. Nobody wants to do this kind of stuff. And then within 2 years, everybody's like trying to do the same thing, right? Google, right? Android didn't even look like what it did until the iPhone came out. And then they were like, oh, that's what we got to do. That's the way we got to do it. And then within about 4 years, Blueberry, is that their name? Oh yeah, BlackBerry. Yeah, I remember them. And they were gone. Microsoft pulled out, right? Microsoft had a huge part of the phone market. And they didn't react quick enough. And they actually got trounced really more by Android than actually by Apple, right? But it was a combined effort. So why understand social theories? Because there are things people do. There are ways they do them. And when it comes to technology, you can apply the sociality that people have and be able to see it happening. So again, I use a smartphone going way back. So when the iPhone came out, that was just a really nice version of stuff I'd already been using for years. So to me, that was not a big shift. And so I wasn't like, I'm going to go get one of those phones. I didn't get an iPhone for years and years and years. But the phone people I was using didn't see that shift, and they took too long to try to keep up with it. Had they been quicker, like had Microsoft been quicker, had BlackBerry been quicker and looked at it and said, wait a minute, look at how many they're selling. And people now have come back for the second version. Boom, the next phone we have better be doing the things that those that they're doing, right? And that was always kind of the problem. Like Samsung basically said, we'll just make ourselves a clone of whatever Apple's doing. That's why they were always getting sued. Instead of looking and saying, what are people doing with it? Let's make sure we can have them do that easily. And if they can do it easily, they'll choose us, right? Anyway, let's take a look at social theories. I'm actually going to stop this video because that's the intro, and we'll start with TAM in just a second.